reiterate what is so obvious to you, but I am going to reiterate certain points in order to call out problems with the investigation, biases and stuff like that. So today I'm going to discuss the disgrace that is this internal affairs investigation. I'm going to talk about how the behavior of the members of the internal affairs team acted when they were interviewing me. I'm going to talk about the deliberate distortion of the events of New Year Day by the internal affairs team. I'm going to talk about the overt bias that's in the report. I'm going to talk about the failure to interview key witnesses by the internal affairs team. And I'm going to talk about the absurd conclusions to their so-called investigation. At the end, I'll discuss the outcomes I hope to see come out of this and my thoughts on the entire affair. For people who didn't get the privilege of these people who got to read the report, I'll give you a bare version of the report just now in a couple seconds. New Year's Day, I saw 2 cops assaulting a female. I stepped in, took pictures, asked questions. They assaulted me. They filed a felony charge against me plus a misdemeanor, and they filed a charge against the female that they were assaulting. And then 11 days later came back and filed 2 new charges, maliciously, vindictively, as a punitive approach to her coming out to the media. So that right there is better than the internal affairs investigation. First, the interview. Like I said, the interview was unprofessional, and it calls into question the ability of the public to ever see justice served through the internal affairs team. They started with the question about asking me what the difference between a truth and a lie was, which I found interesting. And it led me to believe, okay, these people are actually going to try to reach the truth. But they engaged in a cover-up of 2 corrupt cops, and they put lies into their own report, so I know that's not the case. They focused a lot on perception during the investigation, and they used it as an excuse for pretty much everything that Dvorsky and Snyder did that night in the face of the cold hard truth, in the face of evidence that refuted what they were suggesting could be explained away through perception. For example, at one point they asked, do you believe his perception then could have been that you intentionally spit on him? You don't have a perception that someone intentionally spit on you if there's no spit in the first place, right? They were digging for something. Okay, they argued that perhaps I didn't see Norma's mythical assault on Officer Snyder, right? Well, no one saw it because it didn't happen. The evidence proves it. The audio and video didn't pick it up because it didn't happen. They can pick up a lot of things, but there's absolutely no evidence that she did anything to assault him. There is plenty of evidence that he assaulted her and that Dvorsky assaulted her. But they implied that because I didn't maintain continuous eye contact on Norma during the entire affair, that perhaps, maybe, I would have missed this mythical assault that Norma had on this officer. Then they asked specifically, when I reiterated the point that it didn't happen, they said, well, what if it did? What if she did? This calls into question their integrity and the bias of the investigation right from the get-go. Why are they asking completely irrelevant hypotheticals, right? That are only supported through the testimony of 2 cops, and that testimony is filled with lies, irrefutable lies that's proven by the evidence, right? But they don't have in the report the truths that were spoken by the victims that night. And then they followed up, to that one with, but you don't know though, right? Now, is that what an objective investigator is supposed to be doing? Trying to make a point to me? Trying to get me to question what happened that night? Or is their job to get to the truth? And so I hope that you guys have the opportunity to listen to the audio of that investigation, because it'll show right then and there, what kind of unprofessional questioning they led us through. But when someone asks you, but you don't know, though, right? Does that sound like a professional investigator, or does that sound like a petulant child who's looking for an excuse? Okay, second, this so-called facts in the report are simply inaccurate. They're just inaccurate, and this is proven through the contradictions, in their own words, and the evidence that's available. For example, it is claimed that Snyder was told to place Norma in handcuffs if she interfered with Dvorsky's investigation by yelling. Snyder ultimately assaulted her for being on her phone, not for yelling. He claimed that she struck his arm, presumably as a pretext to assault her. That was a lie. And again, what type of investigation takes the word of a cop who has been proven to lie numerous times in his affidavit over the word of the victim of the assault? Another example, the Internal Affairs report said that Oborski told Norma to get out of the car, and that she began yelling for help and resist by refusing to get out of the car. Well, when's the last time you heard a woman crying in pain in advance of being assaulted? It doesn't make sense. Internal Affairs deliberately placed the cry prior to the assault in the report in an effort to create a new fictional chronology of events. On several occasions, they claimed that when Oborski attempted to speak to me, I spoke over him, raising my voice, and that Oborski raised his voice in response. This several times in the investigation and in the final report. Well, this is a lie. The audio clearly shows, or clearly exhibits, that I raised my voice every time Oborski raised his. It's very simple. This is clear cut. Yet somehow they try to obscure that fact. On two occasions, out of the blue, they claim Buehler is saying, "Why are you touching me?" Right? Well, I asked it because he was touching me. He was pushing me. And that seems obvious. But like with Norma, they intentionally distort the chronology of events to infer that their assault was somehow justified. They don't make the point that he touched me and then I said that. At one point, they claim that Officer Oborski tells me I'm under arrest for interfering, and then that I spit on him. In the official police affidavit, Oborski claims I spit on him after he placed his hand on me to create separation because I was in his face. And then later in the report, they claim that Oborski responded to my question, "What do you touch me for?" with "because you spit in my face," which means that I must have spit on him before he touched me. Three completely different versions of events, two in the same report. Clearly there's something seriously wrong with the investigation, the integrity of the investigation. And now I'll talk about bias, the bias of the report. On one occasion during the investigation, the interview, one of the interviewers, they said "we" when talking about the Austin Police Department. Why are they using the term "we" when they're supposed to be the ones investigating police abuse, and they're talking to someone who's the victim of police abuse? The last thing they should be saying is "we" when they're talking about the APD. Maybe that's just a professional thing. And I understand they're cops and they're employed by the cops. After I said there was no justification for the officers to assault Norma, they asked, well, is there justification to strike an officer? Again, is this what a professional investigation is about, trying to one-up me? Well, no, but he hit me first. That's what children do. And this calls into serious question the integrity of the investigation. They know Norma never struck Snyder. They know it's a lie, just like they know the spit was a lie. They know that he was acting like a criminal that night when he ripped her out of her vehicle for not getting off her cell phone quickly enough to appease his ego. They know that Oborski and Snyder engaged in abusive actions against Norma that if any one of us, any civilian, any resident of this town did to anyone else, we'd be in jail. But unfortunately, the cops are somehow treated like a protected class, to include, by Internal Affairs. They kept talking about a disclaimer that I didn't arrive until 10 minutes after the initial stop as a way to dismiss the fact that I observed the assault. Well, when I showed up is irrelevant. If I saw the assault, I saw the assault. They state that I was in close proximity to Officer Oborski before he assaulted me. Well, yeah, but they also ignore the fact that Oborski's the one who came up to me, that I backed away, and he kept coming forward into my face and into my space. And this is proven by the video and by numerous witnesses. They said that I had already shown signs of aggression via verbal confrontation and physically moving within close proximity to the officers attempting to effect an arrest. I mean, you seriously can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is just really, really questionable work by these guys. I was the one who was assaulted by the two out-of-control cops. They already assaulted an innocent woman that night. And I'm the one who was showing signs of aggression? I mean, it's completely ridiculous the way that they wrote up this report. And what's their definition of close proximity? My passenger in the car that night was in closer proximity to them most of the time that we were trying to take pictures of them. It wasn't until he got in my face that there was close proximity. During the investigation, they asked, is it possible that when Oborski and I were behind